Welcome back to a new season of the Big Four podcast. This is a new age, a new year, a new us, and we're ready to start a new year of college football. We're going to start with some college football realignment news. As everybody's heard, Oklahoma and Texas are leaving the Big 12 as early as next year, but it might not be until 2025. So what are your reactions, both of you, on that end?
In my mind, college football is already ruined because the top 5 or 6 teams in the country are the same every single year. The same teams make the playoff every year. So Oklahoma and Texas moving to the SEC, the only thing I think that does is lessen Oklahoma's chances of making the playoff, which means only 5 teams have a chance to make the playoff instead of 6. So I don't know if that'll change in the future, but the way recruiting is going, those 6 teams are always at the top, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. College football has a problem on their hands, and I don't think this really affects it. As for the SEC, I hope they go to that 4-pod thing. That looks pretty interesting. They had there was something on the SEC network where they had 4 pods, and they had 4 different teams in each one, and they were pretty evenly distributed. And you keep the rivals together. I think that would be very interesting to see how that would play out. But I really don't think it would affect who would win the conference at all. And really, I think the biggest loser is the Big 12 overall. I don't really think it affects greater college football.
Oh, really? The Big 12 loses the 2 biggest brands they have. 2 of the 5 biggest brands in college football, and you're going to say they're the biggest loser?
Well, I don't.
Next thing you're going to say is the sky is blue.
My point is that the greater college football landscape doesn't really lose anything here.
I don't think we'll have the full understanding of the effect until we see the full realignment hit. Obviously, everyone says the Big Ten is going to have to do something to stay ahead of the SEC. This puts the SEC in a position to maybe try to become a super conference, see what the Pac-12 does, because they've fallen behind. We were talking last year that the Big 12 had passed the Pac-12 because of how bad they've been in football. And now the Pac-12, they might end up being the worst power conference. What are they going to do to try to regain some notoriety? It'll be interesting to see how it goes the next couple of years.
Yeah, this is overall, it's not good for college football. Obviously, in my opinion, I think you have the 5 conferences, the 5 Power 5 conferences, and they're not equally balanced, obviously, but at least they're somewhat balanced. You got your top teams in each conference, and you got your middle teams, you got your bottom teams. I'd say the Big 12 was always that conference that was never quite as balanced as the other ones, because you had the top 2 brands, and then you had a bunch of mediocre teams, especially in football. Of course, other sports are different. It's not a great thing for college football. You don't want to see a conference like the SEC, because if I'm a fan of a smaller SEC team, I'm not very happy about this. I understand you're making a lot of money, so from a college standpoint, you're going to be happy because you get more money. But is Mississippi State going to be happy about this? Like the fans, probably not, and the players probably not.
You have to remember, all the SEC fans root for the conference and not their teams.
Right. I mean, that's true, I guess. But, overall, who's happy about this? Maybe Texas fans, maybe Oklahoma fans. But once they get there, maybe they'll realize, we liked it how it was before. Maybe it'll be too hard for them. I don't know. But there's not a whole lot of winners here besides, the SEC, of course. They're huge winners. Greg Sankey is the smartest man in all of sports right now. He should run for president, because he's one of the best politicians I've ever seen negotiating that deal. And he's done great things for the conference in the past as well. I guess Luke's right. We'll have to see the big effects, but overall, it's not going to be good things.
One thing I didn't think about was the 12-team playoff moving forward after this year. So I would think Oklahoma and Texas definitely have a lesser chance in the SEC. Either of those teams, so the top 2 in the Big 12 pretty much every year, or top 2 most talented teams in the Big 12.
Now, Iowa State
And now they're gonna have to go to the SEC. Texas is gonna be like the 8th best team, and Oklahoma is gonna have to be 3rd or 4th. So it's gonna be harder to make that 12-team playoff. So they could be losers here too.
All right. Are we all set with this topic? So I'm
No.
sure you've all heard that there's been a report that Kansas is interested in the Big Ten, and perhaps the Big Ten is interested in Kansas. What are your reactions about this news?
I don't think the Big Ten's really interested in Kansas.
Well, that's what the report said.
I know, but I think obviously they probably would explore it, but I don't think Kansas is in the Big Ten's top 10 teams that they would want to expand for, and I don't know if it's worth it. You get a big basketball brand, but I don't know. I don't think it elevates you to the next level. I don't think the Big Ten. I don't think will or should add just to add teams.
I agree with Luke. I think it helps your conference in basketball. Does nothing for you in football or really most other sports. So if they're just going to add, I mean, there's really no point in doing that. You can go add whoever you want, but it's not going to help you overtake the SEC in football. That's never going to happen. So I don't really understand the point of doing it.
Well, here's the thing. I think the Big Ten for Big Ten expansion. I think they're way more interested in a lot of the ACC schools than they are in the Big 12 schools. I don't think there are any Big 12. I don't think. Well, Notre Dame is obviously number one. Notre Dame's number one on the Big Ten's list, and it will be forever. But outside of that happening, I think the ACC, like a North Carolina, something like that, is what the Big Ten wants more than an Iowa State or a Kansas State.
Yeah, I think the only thing the Big Ten could do to even come close to the SEC is try and do some sort of Pac-12 merger. Go out there, try to get Oregon, try to get USC, try to get those teams. And I don't even think that does it either. I don't think they should be interested in Kansas. I think that screams of a desperation move. The one thing you obviously have to worry about is if the SEC wants to expand even more and try and get, say, Florida State and Clemson or something. That could hurt you even more. But as you stand right now, you're clearly the second conference. And if you're going to expand, you're going to have to expand to a much bigger brand than Kansas. Because let's be honest, basketball means nothing. Basketball doesn't give you much money at all. Football is the powerhouse of every conference's revenue. That 80% of your revenue comes from football. So you want to go, if you're going to expand, you want to expand to a football brand and not a basketball brand. And if you do expand to a basketball brand, they better have a respectable football brand and not a complete joke of a football brand that is Kansas football.
Well, Les Miles was building them up. Tell you what.
No, he really wasn't, actually. All right. Let's go over some expectations for each Big Ten team. We're going to go by the media poll, 1 through 7 in each division. We'll start in the Western Division. We'll start with number 1 in the West. Pick number 1 by the media was the Wisconsin Badgers. What is your expectation for Wisconsin this year?
Wisconsin's the same every year, and they will be as long as Barry Alvarez and Paul Chris are there. They should win the West. They should be 10-2, 9-3, and they're going to lose in the Big Ten championship game. It's what they do every year. They'll probably end up being between number 8 and 15 in the poll. Maybe sneak into when does the 12-team playoff start? It's not this year, is it?
Next year.
No.
Next year. Once next year starts, their expectation should be to make the playoffs. That's what their yearly goal should be. But this year, unless they have some miracle season, it's the same thing as every year. They'll run the ball a lot, and they'll go 10-2, 9-3.
Yeah, I agree with Luke. I actually have them at 11-1, but same idea. They're going to be in that range in the poll, and they're going to lose to
They're
Ohio
going to lose
State.
by 60 points.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be between 8 and 15, and they just have no chance in the Big Ten championship. But I do think they'll win the West. A lot of returning production, and just a steady program.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the expectation is going to be high. for Wisconsin. They've got a lot of talent returning. Their quarterback's returning. They were ravaged by COVID last year. It's hard to even really take any of the results they had last year into account, besides maybe their 80-point win against Michigan, because they were somewhat healthy. But obviously, I want to see a step up in offense from previous years. They feel like they have a better quarterback than they've had. So I'm hoping, of course, I don't hope, because I don't want them to be the best team of all time. But, if I'm a Wisconsin fan, I'm hoping to see a huge step up on offense and that defense with Jim Leonard running it. Just steady, very good defense, churning in a ton of talent, developing talent. And Wisconsin's also recruiting a lot better than they have been recently, or at least the past couple of years. So, yeah, obviously they should be trying to win the West, and they'll be there right at the end. All right. Pick number 2 in the West, the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Iowa's just a lesser version of Wisconsin. That's really what they are.
Yeah, I agree. I have them at 10-2, finishing second. 8-1 in the in conference though. They'll lose to Wisconsin, but they'll lose to Iowa State as well. What my problem with this is, we're going to go through these teams, and there's probably not going to be a lot of differences between the media poll and our picks, because there's no disparity between anything in college. It's the same every year in college football. It drives me crazy, which is why I keep saying they have a problem. It's
not ridiculous. A problem. It's a school problem. It's not the problem of the college football.
It's a problem. Recruiting is a problem.
How about, instead of blaming recruiting and blaming the bigger brands for being good, how about you improve yourself?
Well, it's impossible.
For Michigan, why is Michigan blaming Ohio State or these other programs?
Look at Clemson.
Impossible.
Look at Clemson.
No, it's nearly impossible. You see
Look
teams
at
in
Clemson.
basketball.
Clemson has never been a big brand in college football. They were so bad just even a decade ago, and look at them now. They're competing every year.
That will never happen again. When they started being good, it was different than it is now. All the players go to the same schools, and it's just getting ridiculous.
That's not true.
It is true.
How is Penn State number 1 in recruiting right now?
They won't be. They'll drop to 7 or 8 by the end of it. They will. They'll drop to 7 or 8. It's just getting ridiculous. These schools can't recruit, and there's in football, you can't rely on coaching and player development, because it's not as important as in basketball. So it's
recruiting. You have to recruit.
Yep. And Alabama, Ohio State.
You can't recruit. You can't win. That's how it works.
Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia and Oklahoma can all recruit, and will always recruit, no matter what, better than.
Look at Georgia.
Schools.
Georgia is not even it's an SEC. It's a powerhouse now.
Georgia is a massive brand. But
it's never been a huge football school, and they've never been that great at
football. Okay, what are you talking about?
What have I it is a huge football school. They just haven't won anything.
Exactly. They don't win. They've never won.
Well, they're always recruiting high, and they're always one of the only teams to make playoffs.
You can win. Every college football team can win. What do you need? There's 5 different things you need. I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know how many to count to. You got to have the funding for all the facilities, recruiting budgets, all of that. You got to have all the yeses. If a coach asks you a question, you better say yes to all of them. You can't say no to any of those things.
And you better have the facilities.
It's all money. You got to have the money. And then now with NIL, you got to have more money to spend on the players.
The biggest schools have the most money. The biggest football powers have the most money.
You're telling me Michigan doesn't have enough money to compete? Is that what you're telling me?
They don't have as much money as Alabama.
Not true. Michigan has probably the most money of any school in the country.
No.
Yes, they do. They 100% do.
Alabama has better resources.
No, they don't. Michigan has bigger resources as anybody.
No.
The reason why Michigan is losing is because they made bad head coaching hires. If they made the right head coaching hires, they'd be right where they should be.
They're also not recruiting in the top 5. It shouldn't be that.
Why are you not recruiting in the top 5? It's because your head coach sucks.
It shouldn't be. Recruiting should not be the only thing that matters. Like, you might as well not even play the games in college football. You know who's going to win every game. You know who's going to be there at the end. Because it's just all that matters is the talent. In basketball, you actually have to play the games.
You just don't understand how college football works, though.
I am understanding how it works.
Because there's expectations for each team. You can't just say every team is going after a national championship because that's not true. That's not how it works.
Mike, I can go look at the talent rating, the thing they have on 24/7 Sports, and I guarantee you the top 5 are the same as they are every single year.
Yeah.
That's not
so.
And there's no way to make up that ground.
And why are they number 1? Why are they always high? Because they're better. They have better coaches. They have better resources. They have better everything.
My team should be able to win with coaching and player development, and you can't do that. And that's what drives me crazy. You can do that in basketball. You can't do that in football.
Good coaching leads to good recruiting. Winning leads to good recruiting. If you win, you get better recruits.
Look at player development. The more players you send to the NFL, the more recruits are going to want to come. Developing talent.
Well, you can't send players to the NFL if you're getting 3-star recruits. They're not NFL players.
How about Notre Dame? Notre Dame has been the laughingstock of the college football playoff for years, and all of a sudden, they've upped their talent level a hell of a lot in the past couple of years, and they're recruiting in the top 3 right now. Notre Dame could be competing for a national championship soon.
Yeah, Notre Dame is one of the 6 teams with a chance to make the playoffs.
You have to win.
They're one of the 6 teams with a chance to make the playoff every year. So I don't know what your point is.
There's more than 6 teams.
There's only 6 teams.
There's 6 teams.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What were we talking about? Number 2, Iowa.
Oh, I want to add one more thing on Iowa.
Okay,
Spencer Petras, great quarterback. That's why they're going to win 10 games.
He sucks. Listen, Iowa, obviously, I like their team this year. They have a lot returning. They got that running back Goodson. They got Spencer Petras. He's an experienced quarterback at this point, I guess, if you want to say. They're okay. They're going to develop well. They're just stuck in the past. And sure, they're decent at what they do, but if they want to take the next step, they got to innovate a little bit. I think that they could compete with Wisconsin at the top this year, just based on how much talent they have returning. And they have a lot of talent returning. It comes down to quarterback play. But they'll be right there at the Big Ten West at the top. They got a huge game against Indiana to start the year. That'll be a big test. If they can win that game, they'll get off to a great start. Then they got Iowa State also early in the year. That's a big game on the road. If they can pull off those 2 big upsets, watch out, because what's really held Iowa back is they've really started poorly, and especially the past couple of years. Last year they started poorly, lost to Purdue and Northwestern early last year. So they got to get off to a good start.
So where do you have them finishing in the Big Ten West? Second?
I have them second. Yes.
Oh, shocking. Exact same as the media poll.
I have them second. I have Wisconsin first, but I think it's going to be close at the top.
Same for all of us. So do I. I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing every year. I mean, you easily predict it.
Yeah, and listen, Iowa finally broke through and beat Wisconsin last year, but that's a Mickey Mouse win because Wisconsin had about 30 COVID opt-outs. Well, not opt-outs, but COVID injuries or whatever the heck you want to call it. So number 3 in the Big Ten West was the Northwestern Wildcats, who are the reigning Big Ten West champions. Where do you have them finishing? What is their expectations this year?
I think their expectations, especially now, the last few years. I know a couple years ago, 2019, they weren't great. Last year they were very good. 3 years ago they were very good. I think they should be pushing and challenging to win the West. I think they're going to end up second behind. I have Iowa third, Northwestern second because of Pat Fitzgerald. They have a tough schedule this year. They're at Michigan. They're at Wisconsin. They play at Illinois in their rivalry game. They do get to avoid Ohio State, though, so I think that's and their out-of-conference schedule is relatively easy. I think they're going to end up being kind of the surprise of the year.
Yeah, they'll win 8 games and finish third. That's the same as the media poll because it's extremely easy to predict which teams will finish where, just based on talent. And, I think Northwestern, as Luke said, they avoid Ohio State. That'll definitely help them. They'll probably beat Michigan. lose to Wisconsin. And they always, even when they're good, they always lose some games they shouldn't, like losing to Michigan State last year. So I think they'll be right there, 8-4, a couple of games out of first place in the West.
I'm not as high on Northwestern as other people are. They lose a lot, especially on defense. Patty Fisher gone. They still got that safety who's a projected first-round pick. He's back. Some offensive line is back. They lost their tackle that went high in the draft. So they got some things to kind of replace. New quarterback, Ryan Helinski. Is he going to be as good as Peyton Ramsey? That's the question. Is he going to hold down the fort like Peyton Ramsey did? If he can do that, Northwestern can be a decent team. Right now, I have them probably 4th or 5th in the Big Ten West, probably 6-6, trying to get to a bowl game. I don't think they'll be a great team again this year. They just have too much to replace, and I guess. But who knows? I've doubted Northwestern in the past, and they come out and they win 8-9 games, win the Big Ten West. But I don't really see that this year. So next team, picked 4th in the Big Ten West, the Minnesota Golden Gophers under PJ Fleck. Where do you have them finishing? What is their expectation?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. I have no idea. They've been – PJ Fleck, I feel like, has been very inconsistent in Minnesota. He had that one very up year, which I think was more of a fluke. I think this will kind of level it out. They should make a bowl game. They should get to at least 6 wins. Maybe you get a couple breaks, you can get to 7 or 8. But you open up with Ohio State. You're going to Purdue, at Northwestern, at Iowa, and at Indiana. I think it's gonna be tough for them to do anything.
Yeah, I actually have them finishing 4th, the exact same as the media poll, so it's very easy to predict where these teams will finish. I have them at 5-7. As Luke was saying, a tough schedule. And I think PJ Fleck has really hit the ceiling at Minnesota. He hit it a couple of years ago. And, I don't really think there's anywhere else to go from here. They'll be an average team just like they were last year. And I don't think that's really going to change again. They hit their ceiling, and that was it. And he had his chance to take a bigger job. I don't know, didn't take one, didn't want to take one, didn't get offered, whatever it was. And I don't think that's ever going to come around again because I think he hit the ceiling in Minnesota.
Yeah, this is an important year for PJ Fleck. He's got to do a good job this year because this is a very important year. This is a swing year for PJ Fleck. If PJ Fleck can come in and get 8-9 wins, get the recruiting back up, he can once again use his pitch of rowing the boat and getting better recruits, better players in. If he struggles this year, then the shine of PJ Fleck kind of wears off a little bit, and that could affect recruiting and affect their ability to win down the stretch or later on. But I'm high in Minnesota. I have them 3rd in the Big Ten West. They return a lot of production. They don't return Bateman, but they return their entire offensive line, and I think he's a very good coach at recruiting those guys. I think they'll be very good on the offensive line. Defense was terrible last year, but I give them a pass because it's COVID year. They played some weird games. They beat Wisconsin last year at the end of the year. Again, a kind of a Mickey Mouse win. But I'm high on them. Tanner Morgan back for his 20th year. I think he'll be good this year. He kind of had an off year last year. He was very good 2 years ago when they won the Outback Bowl. So I expect big things in Minnesota. 8 wins, maybe 9 wins. Get back to a good bowl, maybe the new Las Vegas Bowl that the Big Ten's in.
The Lobster Bowl.
Well, the Big Ten's not in the Lobster Bowl.
The Red Box Bowl.
I don't even know if the Red Box Bowl is still a thing. It might be. I don't know.
We'll find out this year. It's the only bowl Michigan State can make.
No, we'll probably be in the Quick Lane Bowl if we make one. All right. Picked 5th, Nebraska.
This is a make or break year for Nebraska, and especially for what's his face there. Why can't I think of his name now?
Scott Frost.
Scott Frost. I think they're gonna have a surprise year. I think they're gonna make a bowl game. I think they're gonna win 6 games. They have an easy non-conference schedule. They pulled an SEC and scheduled a non-conference game in week 12 or whatever down there, and they get a lot of teams at home. So I think this is gonna be a surprise year for Nebraska. 6 to 7 wins. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I actually have them finishing 5th in the Big Ten West, just like the media poll. It's very easy to predict where these teams are going to finish. And I have them a very non-competitive 5-7, not really threatening to make a bowl at all. Kind of a backdoor 5 wins, maybe like 2-7. I see their schedule. And Luke said they do get a lot of good teams at home, but frankly, it doesn't really matter because I just don't think they're very good. They're going to be overrated again. They're overrated every year. They go out last year.
They're picked 5th. How are they overrated?
They go well. I'm just going by what they are past years. They go out last year, beat South Alabama, and they jump right into the rankings, just like that. And I'm sure this year they'll go out and beat some Mickey Mouse teams in the non-conference, and they'll be right there in the rankings. Coming to the Big Ten and get slaughtered. And I'm not a believer in Scott Frost. He's done. People that come from UCF, it's just not a good school to coach at. But it will be now.
Just ask Gus.
It will be now.
I was going to say, Gus knows all about that.
That's what the Big Ten should go after, UCF. But yeah, very non-competitive 5-7.
Yeah, I have them 4th. I'm going to put them above Northwestern because I think they're going to make a bowl this year. I think the talent's there. The past 3-4 years, the first 3-4 years under Scott Frost, a lot of roster attrition. I feel like when he came into the Big Ten, I feel like his offense was a little too soft for the Big Ten. I think he's learned his lesson a little bit. I'm not saying Scott Frost is going to be great in the Big Ten anymore, but I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be decent. This is the first year I think that he'll be okay. Is 6-6 enough to save his job? I think so. I think if he goes to a bowl, I think he has to get to a bowl this year. But if he does, I think they'll give him another year, and then maybe after that, maybe he'll start doing better.
Well, Mike,
what?
It's year 0 for Scott Frost this year.
Well, unfortunately, it's not. Well, he should have came in during the COVID year, and then it'd be year 0. But it's not. So, unfortunately. All right. Purdue was picked 6th in the Big Ten.
Yeah, they're going to be dead last. They suck. Brom's going to be fired. He is so bad.
Yeah, I have Purdue actually 6th as well because the same as the media poll, it's very easy to predict where these teams are going to finish. I have them at 4-8. They're going to absolutely suck, winning 2 conference games.
I don't even think they'll win 2.
What?
They might not win a game all year.
I don't know.
Yeah, their schedule's hard. It's really hard. Oregon State, baby. First game of the year.
This is how much of a joke Purdue is. Is they go to play at UConn.
Yeah, I saw that.
At UConn.
Well, they're going to beat Illinois.
They get paid.
They're going to beat Illinois, and I also have them beating Nebraska because Nebraska sucks. So they're 2 games in conference. But yeah, not going to be a good season for Purdue.
Oh, God. Purdue is probably the team that's trending down the most in the Big Ten because you look at every other team. Most teams in the Big Ten, I'd say, are trending up with the exceptions of Michigan's trending down. Nebraska's sort of trending down.
Michigan State.
Michigan State's trending straight up. But Purdue is trending straight down. Their recruiting has been awful the past couple of years. You see their biggest recruit that they got is the kid, the All-American defensive or the All-American linebacker's brother, who they have. So that was a great get out of West Lafayette, Indiana. Very hard recruit that was. But yeah, really the shine of Jeff Brom is gone. Recruits have realized that his program is not where it should be at this point. And, they've got talent on the offensive side. David Bell, solid wide receiver. Rondale Moore's gone. And we'll see who they have at quarterback this year. I have Purdue finishing dead last in the Big Ten West. I think Illinois is going to be better than they are. I do not like Purdue at all. Speaking of Illinois, they're picked dead last in the Big Ten West.
Yeah, I have Illinois actually being maybe not the surprise of the season, but I think come the last 2 weeks, I think they're going to be playing to get into a bowl game.
All right. Illinois is going to absolutely suck. They're not going to win a conference game. You can't fire a great coach like Lovie Smith and expect to be good the next year.
They hired a better coach.
No, they didn't. Lovie Smith was the class of the Big Ten coaching-wise. And, they just fired him for no reason. It's really just a disappointment. They have no talent. They're going to be a complete joke. So I have them finishing 2-10 and not winning a single conference game.
No, I think they're going to be pushing for a bowl game come the end of the year.
All right.
Illinois, listen, they're picked dead last, but they return a lot, including their quarterback.
Well, their quarterback is very good. I will say that.
Yeah, Brandon Peters. He's an
that's the only part of their
experienced
team.
quarterback.
Coached by the QB guru.
Yeah, they just fired the quarterback guru.
Bro, Brett
believe
Bielema is
that.
the quarterback guru. He coached
No.
Russell Wilson.
Well, Lovie Smith, who did he coach? Jay Cutler?
Brett Bielema also coached Tom
Jeff George
Brady.
Jr., I don't know. Lovie Smith didn't coach any good quarterbacks. He coached Jameis.
Chavis? Michael Chavis?
No, Jameis.
Oh.
Yeah, Illinois, they return a lot, so I think they're going to have one of those first-year surprise seasons. And then next year they'll be terrible. But this year, because they return a lot, I think they'll be okay. Well, not great, not bowl good, but they'll be 5-7. They'll surprise a few teams. They might beat Rutgers. They might beat Purdue. Who knows? They might sneak into a bowl game. You never know. Maybe they'll surprise Virginia in week 3. That's a big game.
Nebraska week 1.
Oh, that's a big game. Big game. If they can win that game, then that'll be a good start. And then Scott Frost will be pretty much gone if he loses that game. All right. We'll move to the Big Ten East. Ohio State picked first in the Big Ten East.
Yeah, if Ohio State's number one goal is to beat Michigan and then to win the Big Ten and then to make the playoff. And if they don't do those 3 things, it's a disappointment of a season.
Yeah, I don't really think they're going to be challenged. They probably – oh, by the way, I have Ohio State finishing first, just like the media poll. It's very easy to pick these teams where they're going to finish. I don't think they're going to be challenged. They're going to win every game, probably by 10-plus points. They get bailed out in their scheduling.
How?
Getting to play Penn State at home.
They played them on the road last year. They went to
last
Penn
year
State.
there were no fans, so they got bailed out.
Okay.
They get bailed out by getting to play Michigan at all. So just ridiculous bailed out.
Well, they
for
have a
Ohio
home game against Michigan at the Big House.
Yep, they do have a home game last week of the season.
At the Big House.
They're going to run through. They'll make the playoff because they're one of 6 teams that has a chance to make the playoff.
Ohio State's they're the class of the Big Ten, obviously. Class of college football. They should be in the playoff at the end of the year. Their goals are Michigan, winning the Big Ten, winning the national championship. They've done the first 2 things. The third thing they haven't done yet, and they're going to be aiming to do that this year. I think college football is a lot more wide open this year than it has been in years past. I think there's a couple teams that has a chance to win the national championship. Ohio State's one of them.
The thing with Ohio State, though, is that you have a big question mark at quarterback. You have a lot of talent in that QB room, but quarterback's that one position that who knows.
That's true. They've remember a couple years ago, what was it? The first year they had Justin Fields. and people were questioning Ohio State. It was Ryan Day's first year. They didn't know if Justin Fields would be a great quarterback, and he was. So you're hoping the same thing. Obviously, the same thing would happen with
I
Stroud.
think you have a well. Who knows? It's going to be Stroud. They have like 4 guys competing for the job.
Well, we'll see. It seems like Stroud's the leader in the clubhouse right now.
I would agree with that, but now with Ewers coming in, is he really going to reclassify to sit out for a year? Maybe it gets him to the NFL a year earlier. McCord's there, 5-star guy. Jack Miller was Ryan Day. Ryan Day handpicked him first before they got Stroud in that same class. There's some interesting things going into camp. And the longer it goes on, the worse I think it is. I don't think it's going to matter too much, but opening up at Minnesota then against Oregon is not the easiest way to open up. You don't have much time to test the waters.
That's my point. Early on in the year, these are the 2 games I think Ohio State should be at least a little bit worried about. Is at Minnesota, and the only reason why I'd say they'll be worried is because it's a Thursday night, first game of the year, new quarterback for Ohio State. Experienced Minnesota team. The spread's under 14 right now. So, I mean, it's not a automatic lock game. But they got to win that game. And then Oregon and Penn State are the 2 teams that are at least in the stratosphere talent-wise that they are on their schedule. Oregon's a very talented team. They've got their quarterback issues too. Is Anthony Brown going to be their starting quarterback? I mean, I hope not. If they're actually going to compete with Ohio State, they better have a quarterback that's dynamic. But I still think they should win that game pretty easily. And then Penn State, I think Penn State will be talented, but they won't really give them too much issue. And then Michigan's never an issue. And then Indiana on the road, they struggled a little bit with Indiana last year, but again, way more talented. Indiana might give them a little bit of a game, but they should win that as well. So, yeah, I have Ohio State finishing first, winning the Big Ten, and getting to the playoff. Okay. Penn State was picked second in the Big Ten East.
Penn State's going to have the biggest disappointment season, I think, in the Big Ten. Not as bad as like last year, but I think they only won 7 or 8 games this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Penn State is the number 2 team here. And by the way, I think this is the first year where going into the preseason, at least I would say the West is better than the East.
Oh, give me a break.
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
I'll take 3 teams. I'll take Wisconsin, Iowa, and Northwestern over Penn State, who's the number 2 team in the East. I'd
hope the number 1 team in the Big Ten West is better than the number 2 team in the Big Ten East.
So is the number 2 and 3 team in the Big Ten West.
No.
I think Penn State will lose 3 games in conference. They will go 9-3, but they won't really compete with Ohio State for the division. But they will finish second because the Big Ten East is very weak this year.
Penn State is going into Wisconsin week 1 and winning that game, and they're going to finish 10-2, 9-3, or 11-1 around that point. I think they're going to have a much better season. Obviously, they're going to have a much better season than last year, but I think they built momentum at the end of last year. Very young team. They've got some experience coming back. At quarterback, Sean Clifford's he's a question mark.
He's awful.
But I think they have a very talented roster, and I think they're going to win a lot of games. They're going to be favored in a lot of games. The first game of the year is going to be important for them. If they can win that game, they can go into Wisconsin and win. That'll be a huge confidence booster. But if they lose that game, they've still got chances to get back. That game against Auburn week 3, that's going to be a huge game. That'll be a huge game for the Big Ten because Auburn's going to be probably 5th in the SEC West. So that's a game they got to win. They have more talent than Auburn. They should win that game. But Indiana, that's going to be a tough game. Michigan's going to be a tough game. I think that they should beat Michigan, but that's a tough game. I like Penn State a lot this year. I really do. Okay, I am finishing second, by the way. Okay, number 3 was Indiana.
Obviously, Penix coming off that injury is a huge question mark. But I mean, if he plays anywhere and if he takes a step up from his level that he was playing at before his injury, I think Indiana will be fine. They have one of the best coaches in the conference. They start out tough. They do start out tough, and they have a really tough schedule. They have a tough schedule every year for Indiana, though, since they do have to play in the East. But they have to go to Iowa. Cincinnati at home in non-conference isn't an easy game. At Penn State, at Michigan. I just think their schedule is what's going to get to them. Not necessarily. I think they're going to play well in all these games. I just think their schedule is going to hurt them.
Yeah, a lot of things are going to go wrong for Indiana this year. They're going to be the most disappointing team in the conference. Their schedule's tough, and the law of averages is going to hit them. Iowa lost, Penn State lost, Ohio State lost, Maryland lost, Michigan lost. I think they go 4-5 in the Big Ten. Finished 7-5, but a disappointing fifth-place finish for Indiana.
I agree with the law of averages argument. I think they're going to be a very good team this year. I think they're not as good as Michigan. I don't think they're as good as Penn State. Or I don't think they're as good as, of course, they're not as good as Ohio State. I have them finishing fourth in the Big Ten East. I think they can go 7-5, 8-4. But week one, that's going to be a tough game. I think Iowa's better than they are this year. I understand they return a lot. They got Penix, they got Freifogel, Walt Fillier, that tight end. They got a lot on defense coming back. They're a well-coached team. But I do think, they did kind of tread above water last year. They played above their weight a little bit, and I think it's going to hit them a little bit this year. 7-5, 8-4, fourth in the Big Ten East. Speaking of a team that was picked fourth in the Big Ten East, Michigan.
I think Michigan is going to have a better year than what people think they're going to have. I don't think it's going to be acceptable for Michigan fans, and I wouldn't accept it if I was a Michigan fan. But I think they have – Washington will be an interesting game, but they get them at home. They have most of their non-conference games to start the season. But they have all of them in the first 3 weeks, which I think helps them a lot. With then Rutgers. And then going to Wisconsin is tough. But, you get Ohio State at home. You have to go to Michigan State and Penn State. But I think they're going to beat Penn State this year. I really do. Who knows about the Michigan State game, rivalry games, you never know. I think we could be going into the Ohio State game with them being a top 15 team in the country.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a stereotypical Jim Harbaugh season.
Yeah, they're gonna go 9-3, 10-2, and lose to Ohio State to cost them a spot in the Big Ten championship game. Something like that.
It's going to be the most non-competitive 9-3 you've ever seen. They're going to get run out of Madison by Wisconsin. They're going to get blasted by Penn State, and they're going to get blasted by Ohio State. But they'll win all the other games that they're supposed to win. It'll be a classic Jim Harbaugh season, and they'll be 9-3. It'll be disappointing, but since they win 9 games, that's good enough for the University of Michigan. So he'll continue to be the coach after this year.
7-5.
I have them finishing third.
7-5, 8-4. Them and Indiana are going to be at that same level sort of team. 7-5, 8-4. I don't think they're going to be as competitive as those other Jim Harbaugh teams. I just don't see it. The talent isn't there. It's not there yet. They've started to recruit a little bit better, but the talent that they had last year, a lot of those same guys are returning. And I think they'll lose week 2 against Washington. Washington, I think, is a better team. I think they'll win Western Michigan. A lot of people have been taking Western Michigan. I don't see that. That's kind of ridiculous. But they'll beat Northern Illinois. They'll beat Rutgers. They'll lose to Wisconsin probably, but that'll be a close game. I think they're similar to Wisconsin.
The classic Jim Harbaugh would be to start the year like 7-0, and then lose to Michigan State, get blasted by Penn State, and then lose to Ohio State. That would be classic.
Yeah, I think they'll beat Nebraska, beat Northwestern,
All the media will
toss-up.
start. All the media starts talking. Oh, Michigan beats Wisconsin at Wisconsin. Is this Michigan team for real this year? Is Jim Harbaugh? This going to be the year they finally do it? Is the quarterback? Is McNamara the quarterback that he's been looking for? And then he comes to the end of the year, loses the 2 games against Ohio State and Penn State by combined 100-6, and then we'll do it again next year.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the game at Michigan State's a toss-up. I think the game at Penn State or home against Penn State's a loss. Well, it's at Penn State.
No, they're
That's a
at
loss.
Penn State.
Home against Indiana, that's a toss-up. At Maryland should be a win. And then their annual sodomization at the hands of Ohio State. So we'll see. It just depends. A lot of it depends on coaching. They got to get better coaching this year. Their coaching's been below average the past couple of years, especially on defense. New defensive coordinator, a lot of new coaches, a lot of younger coaches. We'll see if that translates to better results on the field. We'll see. Jim Harbaugh, I think he's got 2 more years. I think this year they'll give him a pass again this year. And if he doesn't start winning next year, then they'll talk about mutually parting ways. But this year, I think 7-5 will do it. 8-4, they'll be fine. Michigan fans won't like it, but he'll be back next year. That's a good thing for Michigan State fans. It's a good thing for Ohio State fans. It's a good thing for all fans of other teams. All right. Picked 5th in the Big Ten East, Maryland.
It'll be all right. They're going to start hot because they have 4 pretty easy games. I mean, West Virginia, who knows there. But then Iowa's a loss, Ohio State, and then they might just lose out. They have a tough schedule. I don't see them. They'll be lucky to make a bowl.
I really like Maryland. I think they're going to win 8 games.
8 games? Are you on crack?
I like Talia.
What games are they going to win? Who are they going to beat?
All right. Let me take a look here.
West Virginia week 1.
That's a loss.
Hold on a second. Let me pull up my predictions.
Howard, Illinois, Kent State. They only have like 6 winnable games.
All right. They're going to beat West Virginia.
No, that's a loss.
They're going to beat Howard.
I'd hope so.
They're going to beat Illinois.
No, that might be a loss.
Beat Kent State.
They're going to beat Kent State. They're
Loss.
going to beat Minnesota.
No, that's a loss.
They're going to beat Indiana.
That's a loss.
They're going to beat Michigan State, and they're going to beat Rutgers.
That's probably a loss. That's a loss. That's a loss.
8-4, 4th in the Big Ten East.
Okay, next team. That's the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard.
Anyway, I have Maryland finishing dead last, the Big Ten East. When you look at the Big Ten, I think a lot of teams have made good coaching hires, and some teams made bad coaching hires. Maryland's one of those teams. Listen, the level in the Big Ten East of competitiveness has gone up. Rutgers hired a very good coach. Michigan State hired a good coach.
No, they didn't.
Indiana's got a good coach. Penn State's got a good coach. Ohio State's got a good coach. And Maryland's got a terrible coach. That's just it. And they made some terrible, terrible, terrible coaching hires in the offseason. They hired Dan Enos from he was at Miami a couple of years ago when they ran that horrible pro-style offense. Are they going to be running the pro-style offense this year? That's my question. They hired a pro-style offensive coordinator. Are they going to run the pro-style? What are they doing? I don't know what they're doing. It makes no sense. They're recruiting okay.
Yeah,
they got some talent down
because
there.
recruiting's all that matters.
Okay. Well, Maryland's the one exception because they recruit well and they still suck. So
No,
I don't know what they're doing.
You're going to see this year.
Yeah, they're going to win.
If Maryland could get a half-decent coach that can recruit and have – I mean, they have a good recruiting base in the DMV down there.
They're recruiting
DC.
fine. Their coaching's terrible. I don't know what they're doing. I am finishing dead last, 3-9, 4-8 type season. All right, 6th in the Big Ten, Rutgers.
Rutgers is going to do better. I think Shiano will have them win enough games. Their goal this year should be getting – I don't think they're not going to make a bowl game. I don't think so. But they're going into the last week of the season, maybe that should be their goal, is to be able to maybe make a bowl game or be 5-7 and have a chance to get one of those bowls. I mean, they have a very tough schedule at Indiana, at Penn State, at Illinois. They should beat Illinois, but at the same time, who knows where they are. At Michigan, they just have a tough end of the schedule. But I mean, at some point that you got to say, hey, when are we going to get going here? And they just got to do it at some point.
I think Rutgers will be decent. I don't think they're going to be a pushover. I do think they're going to finish last. They only have 2 winnable games in the schedule for me, and that's Illinois and Michigan State. And I don't think that – I think they'll beat Illinois. I think that'll be it. They'll keep some games close, and it's just a tough break with the scheduling. 1-8 in the Big Ten, 4-8 overall.
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be a couple baseline games for them. I think the law of averages is going to hurt Rutgers. I think they caught a couple teams last year on bad weeks. I don't think their talent is comparable to other Big Ten teams right now. They've started to recruit a lot better. That the New Jersey base is a base you can get a lot of talent from, but it's still a couple of years away. Still got some transfers in from Big Ten teams, including that.
That's what Shiano's been doing the last couple of years. He's been working the transfer portal. He's been pretty successful.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes this year. I still think they're probably dead last in terms of talent, but they've got a good coach. They should beat Temple. They should beat Syracuse. They should sweep their non-conference schedule. They should go 3-0 in their non-conference schedule. And then it starts to get tough. The game against Michigan State, they beat them last year. That'll be a tough game. They could win that game. They could beat Northwestern. They could beat Illinois. Maryland's a game they got to win. Yeah, I have them 4-8, 5-7, 6th in the Big Ten East. All right, and the team the team that was picked last was Michigan State.
Michigan State's goal should be a bowl game. That might be their ceiling. 6-6 might be their ceiling. Maybe 7-5 is the ceiling. But you got to try to. Your goal should be if you don't make a bowl game, if Michigan State doesn't make a bowl game, it will be a disappointing season. Obviously, you want to beat your rival in Michigan, and that helps ease the pain if you don't make a bowl game. But that's got to be the goal. I mean, you got it. Northwestern first game, that's a tough game, but it's a winnable game. Northwestern, Youngstown State, another winnable game. Nebraska's a winnable game. Western Kentucky's a winnable game. Rutgers is a winnable game. At Purdue's a winnable game. Maryland's a winnable game. They have you got to find a way to win some of these games and make a bowl game. You really do. And if they don't, Mel Tucker's not going to be on the hot seat yet, but there are going to be some questions thrown his way if you don't make a bowl game this year. Mike was saying,
I could tell you
Michael,
that's just not
this
true.
is year -15.
Yeah,
this is year negative 15.
Look, you're forgetting this is year -20 for Mel Tucker. So no matter what they do, he will not be on the hot seat.
Well, do you see we're number 15 in the country in recruiting right now?
Michigan State, I think they're going to finish 5-7.
Actually, Rivals has us number 12 in the recruiting rankings right now. So
they're going to go 3-6 in the Big Ten, and they'll lose to Miami in the non-conference. I'm going to be honest. I think Michigan State's in trouble. I think Mel Tucker's been a disaster so far. He was certainly a disaster last year. His recruiting so far has been awful. Really,
that's why we're number 12 in the country in recruiting. It's been awful.
Well, that's because you have the most commits in the country.
No, we don't. We have 19,
so
which is
it's
a little bit more than average.
They'll probably be in the mid-20s by the end of the recruiting season.
Which is good. That's really good.
2022. That's not good. That's
really good for us.
Mel Tucker has been a complete disaster so far. I think he's a decent coach.
Yeah,
but
because let's judge off the COVID season. That's a smart thing
I think
to do.
he's a decent
with a
coach,
year one hire.
But I don't think he can recruit, really. I just don't think he's a good recruiter. And I think Michigan State.
Yeah, you can't even say that with a straight face. You know you're in trouble. You're in big-time trouble.
Mike,
big time. We have the top four. We have the top 4 commits in the state this year. You know you're in trouble.
He's been a disaster on the recruiting trail.
He's not been a disaster.
He's been a disaster.
Look at the transfer portal. He's hit the
Oh,
transfer
yeah.
portal
Here we
hard.
go. Here we go.
We've
You got
gotten
to take the
several
transfer portal
starters,
into account. Here we go.
Several depth players from the portal.
Michigan State is in deep trouble. They were better off with Antonio at the end than they are right now with Mel Tucker.
I've heard
Well,
that opinion.
Michigan's the state to watch this year because both coaches are on the hot seat, according to coacheshotseat.com.
Yes, I saw that. I actually saw that. A lot of optimism around Michigan State. The goal has got to be we got to be competitive in almost every game. That's the goal. And we
Your
got to
goal
win.
should be to make a bowl game because some of these you gotta have to start winning some games. It's all great to say, hey, it takes some time, but in the meantime, you don't need to win every game. You got to be competitive and win some games, especially at a brand like Michigan State.
The over/under win total for Michigan State this year is 4.5. They should be over 4.5. 5 and 7 should be the floor. Well, you never know with injuries, but Northwestern week 1, that's going to be a tough game, but I think that's a toss-up. I think both teams, where they are situated right now, that could be a toss-up. Week 2 should be a win or home against Youngstown State. Miami's a tough game, but listen, who knows? It's Miami.
Okay.
They've lost those games before.
Right.
Mike, Michigan State has 9 games that they should be in or be competitive in this year. You got to be able to find a way to get 5 wins. Win half of them, 5, 6 wins.
It depends on how the transfers that come in have influx, how much talent has been influxed into the program. Because we were a Rutgers level talent last year. So we had to bring in a ton of talent. He brought in 19 new transfers. We got 30-something new players into the program. It's a culture change, new quarterback possibly, quarterback battle. I mean, there's a lot of question marks going on this year. I think we'll finish probably 5th in the Big Ten, in the Big Ten East, maybe 4th if we can beat Michigan. I think that's a toss-up game.
Oh, please. Okay.
If we beat Michigan, you will never, ever beat us ever again if you don't beat us this year.
Your quarterback, the quarterback position at Michigan State is going to be a complete and utter disaster this year.
Says the team that's trotting out Cade McNamara as their quarterback.
Who is a game manager? At least our quarterback didn't.
Peyton Thorne's one of the best quarterbacks we've ever had.
You've been talking about Anthony Russo.
Michigan State is QBU.
We're backup QBU.
I mean, they're going to be a disaster. I mean,
you're anti-vax QBU.
Noah Kim is your best quarterback, and
Theo Day's at Michigan. What are you talking about?
All right,
he might be your starter. Watch out. That's a name you haven't heard this year. It's Theo Day.
Is that Ryan Day's son?
Yeah, that's why he's at Michigan.
All right. What's next?
All right. Next, we have Power 5 conference predictions. Okay. So just predict, who's going to make the conference championship games, who's going to win the conference, that sort of thing. We'll start with the ACC.
Well, Clemson's going to win the conference. The question is just who they're going to play in the championship game. And that conference in the ACC is always wide open. I mean, they've had 7 different winners in the last 7 years. I don't know. But give me Virginia Tech, I guess.
I'm taking Clemson over North Carolina, who will be 11-1 going into that conference championship game, but will lose to Clemson in the championship, who will also be 11-1. Look out for BC. I think they're going to win 10 games this year. I have BC at 10-2.
Yeah, you're on crack. The winner of the ACC is going to be Clemson. When you look at some other teams that could compete possibly, a team to watch out for, I think the second best team in the Atlantic is going to be Florida State this year. Florida State, they've had a lot of problems, especially off the field. But the new coaching staff they've done a very good job, especially on the recruiting trail. They've gotten a bunch of new transfers in there. Florida State's a team to watch out for. BC, I think the law of averages, they're average every year. So law of averages is 7-5. They'll go 7-5 just like they do every year.
No,
They'll be
10 and
fine.
2.
They'll be a fine team. They
If
got a
they
way
beat,
easier
look
schedule
out,
than most teams.
Mike.
What?
If they somehow beat Clemson, they're gonna win the ACC.
They're not going to beat Clemson. They're not going to beat Florida State.
All right,
And
let's
NC
relax.
State's a game they probably won't win either. So
All right,
mean,
all right, next conference.
NC State's a
This is
good team. I
ridiculous.
think BC will finish around third or fourth in the Coastal or Atlantic, whatever division that is. Miami, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, the three teams in the Coastal that are going to be competing for the Coastal Championship. I think North Carolina is going to be the favorite, but Miami, watch out for them. I think they're a very talented team, but North Carolina right now is the favorite. Okay, next we got the Big 12.
Oklahoma's going to win the conference, and they're going to play. I'll go with Texas. I think Steve Sarkisian's going to do a good job there. So I'll go Oklahoma versus Texas in the Big 12 championship game, which I don't think's happened yet since they've gone to the championship game, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Oh, no, it's happened once.
11-1 Oklahoma will defeat 11-1 Iowa State, who will be very, very good this year in the Big 12.
Well, listen, Iowa State's my team. But I just think it's hard. The way that the style of football they play, I think is I think they're very comparable to Minnesota of a couple of years ago.
Well, they were in the championship game last year.
I know,
gonna do it
but
again.
I think they can do it again. I just think the way they play, it's just I don't know if they'll be able to consistently pull off some of the wins they did like they did last year.
Yep. Law of averages is the main thing for Iowa State, in my opinion. Remember, 2 years ago, they went 7-5, but in their 5 losses, they lost a bunch of one-score games. And then last year, I said they were going to have a great year because of the law of averages. And they had a great year. The law of averages says that they're going to lose some of those close games. And I think there's a possibility they do that. I still think they're going to represent they're going to be in the Big 12 championship. They're going to be second. Texas, I think, is still a year away. Tom Herman left a mess there. And I think it's going to be at least take a year for Sarkisian to clean that up. And Oklahoma is the class of the Big 12. They're a top 5 team in the country right now. They're going to finish top 5 in the country. And they're going to win the Big 12 again for, what is it, like the 5th or 6th straight year. And who do they even play? I mean, who's in their non-conference schedule? They got Tulane, Western Carolina, Nebraska. So the 3 easy wins there. Well,
That's a big rivalry game. That's a big rivalry.
Yeah, but Nebraska doesn't have nearly the talent that Oklahoma has. Team to watch out for, a sleeper team is West Virginia. I've been impressed with the way that they've kind of built their program there. And so watch out for West Virginia this year. Okay, next we got the Pac-12.
It's going to be Oregon versus USC. I think Clay Helton's finally going to get off the help. He's never going to be off the help. See, I don't know. He just never will be. But because I don't think he's a great fit at USC. But I think he does a good job, and I think they might be challenging for the playoff this year.
I think the 2 best teams in the Pac-12 are in the South, and it's USC and Arizona State. I think the Pac-12.
Arizona State's done.
The Pac-12 will play itself out of the playoff. They'll get a couple 10-win teams in the championship, and
every year.
I was going to say something about that. All the allegations that Arizona State's kind of been blown under. I haven't heard anything about that the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, have you seen the NCAA takes like 10 years for these investigations?
Yeah, exactly. They're going to be just fine. Arizona State's going to win the Pac-12. They're the best team.
It certainly hurt the recruiting, that's for sure, because they can't pay players anymore.
Well, that's not hurting them this year, is it?
Well, we'll see. We'll see how that works out. See this? Let's go, Oregon State. They got to be the Pac-12 favorites, right? Coming off of last year, or they like 2-4, great season, big win over Oregon. Oregon State, one of the favorites in the Pac-12. They got some teams to worry about, though. Oregon, most talented team in the Pac-12 for sure. Telling you, my guy, what's his name? The Oregon coach.
Mario Cristobal.
Mario Cristobal is the most underrated coach in college football because he goes into places where he has no business being, and he out-recruits some of the big boys for some guys. Maybe it's the Nike Oregon brand. Maybe it's their color scheme. I don't know what it is, but he does a terrific job recruiting there. And Oregon, right now, they're just on a different level talent-wise from any other team. I think USC's the second best team. USC and Washington are around the same level. I think they both have a lot of talent. Washington's kind of like the Wisconsin level talent because they develop pretty well. They still got the Chris Peterson mold there, even with their new coach. And then, Arizona State, who the heck knows? I think they're definitely the wild card this year because I don't know what this FBI thing's going to – not FBI, I don't know, NCAA, FBI, whatever. How's that going to affect their team? I've heard that Herm Edwards is going to be gone, but he hasn't been fired yet, so I don't know. Utah is always a team to watch out for, but they'll choke at the end of the year like they always do. So I think it's going to be USC and Oregon's going to win it. All right. How about the SEC?
Out of the East, I have Florida. No, actually, I have Georgia. Out of the East, I have Georgia. And out of the West, this is going to surprise everyone. You're probably going to laugh at me.
Let me guess, A&M.
No,
Do
it's
not
not
say
A&M.
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
It's not Ole Miss. It's Will Rogers and Mississippi State. Will Rogers. He's going to be a Heisman contender next year. Will Rogers.
All right. I have Alabama out of the West at 11-1.
Nope.
And
Will Rogers.
Georgia out of the East at 12-0. Georgia's by far the best team in the country. They're going to win the conference over Alabama and make the playoff. I think Tennessee is actually going to go 9-3 this year. I know they've been down.
Well, they have a great quarterback.
Yeah. I have Tennessee
Are you
at
on
9-3.
crack?
Look out. I'm telling you right now. You heard it here first. Tennessee is going 9-3. And I also have Ole Miss at 10-2.
Are you on crack?
Those two things are going to happen.
I like Ole Miss. But 10-2, are you kidding me?
Well, they're going to lose to Mississippi State. They lose to them.
All right.
Someone's going to do something stupid, and they're going to lose.
All right, out of the East, it's Georgia, and it's not even close. The East is really lagging behind the West. Florida's going to have a down year. They got a lot of things to replace. Georgia, they've got an influx of talent, and they've got a couple big transfers. Eric Gilbert, who was supposed to go to Florida and then said, fuck you, and he went to Georgia like a dog does. And now he's playing for the Dogs. Georgia's going to win the East. The West is absolutely stacked. Absolutely stacked. Alabama's the favorite, but I'm not picking them. Texas A&M. Texas A&M. They are going to win the West this year. They play Alabama early in the year at home, and they're going to beat them. They're going to beat them, and they're going to win the West. But they've got some opponents as well. Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is going to be very good.
Mississippi State.
Auburn's going to have a rebuilding year. Mississippi State. And the team no one's talking about is LSU. I think LSU is top 5 in the country if we're talking about talent. But nobody's going to be picking LSU to do anything because their coach is an alligator. And he doesn't really know what he's doing. But the talent's there, so you never know.
Yeah, but he
what
dominates
you're gonna
Ray
see.
Baker.
Okay. I mean, the talent's there, but we don't know what we're going to see from LSU. I think Texas A&M, this is their year, and they're going to win the SEC West, and they're going to lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game, and then Alabama will sneak into the playoff at 11-1. That's just how it's going to work. But maybe this is the year that they don't sneak into the playoff because another conference winner is just good enough. Perhaps Clemson, maybe, but if Clemson loses to Georgia week 1, that might eliminate them very early. Maybe it'll eliminate them, but hurt their chances.
Does not eliminate them. Give me a break. If they lose
Oh,
to what? If Georgia ends up going 11-1, 12-0, and winning the SEC, and Clemson's only losses to them, that doesn't eliminate them from contention at all.
Would you put
We've seen it
Clemson-
multiple times. We've seen it multiple times.
Okay, would you put Clemson in the playoff over Alabama if they win the ACC and Alabama's only lost to the Texas A&M and they don't make the SEC championship game?
Yes. I
All right.
consider it.
Come on.
I'd definitely consider it.
You'd have to consider it. But, I mean, I don't know. That's a tough call.
Their only loss being to the number one team in the country, assuming that's Georgia.
Yeah. It's tough. And then Texas A&M has an argument if they lose to Georgia because they beat Alabama. Who knows? But maybe this is the year we have 5 undefeated teams. I've been saying it for
here
years.
we go. Here we go.
But maybe this is the year, perhaps.
Here we
Maybe,
go.
well, it's not going to be the Pac-12, I think, because Oregon's going to lose. And I don't think they're going to lose to Ohio State. I don't think there's any team that's close to as good as they are in the Pac-12. So,
Cincinnati? Does Cincinnati have a chance?
No,
All
Cincinnati
right,
doesn't have
what's
a
the
chance.
next topic? That's enough of that.
But anyway, Clemson, well, if they lose, then who knows? If Clemson wins that game, then they're going to go 12-0, no doubt, 13-0. And then, Alabama possibly. They got a light non-conference schedule as usual. And then Cincinnati, they've just got a lot of things they have to worry about. Cincinnati's going to be fine once the 12-team playoff comes in, though. They'll be right where they want to be. They'll be in contention if they can keep Luke Fickell. But anyway, what are your early playoff picks this early in the year?
Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia. This is gonna be my wild card. I throw one out every year.
Mississippi State.
I've only hit on one, but I hit big on that one. I'm going with USC.
All right, I have
That's
Georgia.
your worst wild card pick.
Why?
It's just your worst. They have no chance.
Last year it was Texas versus Texas A&M in the championship game.
All right, I have Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oklahoma.
Okay, I have Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and then I don't think Clemson's going to make it. Give me Texas A&M. So Alabama and Clemson don't make the playoff this year. It'll be Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M. All right. Early coaches' hot seat predictions here. Possible open jobs. Luke, get the coaches' hot seat open. Get the website over there. Look at who's up there and who's going to lose their job this year.
Well, the number one person on the hot seat right now is Jim Harbaugh, which is obvious.
He's not losing his job unless they have a disastrous year.
But the one guy that I think is going to get fired after this year that is in the top 5 on the hot seat is Jeff Brom. I think he's done. Scott Frost is another guy up there in the top 5. Number 1 and number 2 are very interesting this year because they're very similar. Jim Harbaugh and Clay Helton. Very, very similar at both big brand schools. Underperforming. I mean, a little different. Jim Harbaugh and Clay Helton, how they came in, but they ended up being the same. And Scott Frost also on the hot seat. And surprisingly enough, Mike Leach rounds out the top 5. I don't think he'll be fired so soon. But I don't think there's many guys this year other than Jim Harbaugh. A lot of years you have a lot of big name schools that might come open. But outside of Michigan, maybe USC if they have a really bad year. But other than Michigan, there's not any big name schools. I mean, Nebraska historically is a big name school, but I don't think it's really that big of a job anymore. So,
Yeah, I think
other than that,
Scott Frost is getting fired. He's definitely getting fired after this year. And that could be that's probably going to be the number 1 job.
depends on what happens with Harbaugh.
What else would be better?
If
Michigan
USC gets open.
USC and
No,
Michigan
USC,
would be
no,
better.
that's not going to happen.
Yes, it will.
No, it won't.
I think it'll be open this year.
They should fire your guy at Texas Tech, Mike. He sucks.
Yeah. Well, is that a good job?
Hey, better than Nebraska. I'd rather go there than Nebraska.
Well, he's not on the hot seat.
All right. Let's look at the hot seat. Just go to the top, whatever. Harbaugh not on the hot seat unless they do terrible. Clay Helton on the hot seat. I think he's on the hot seat every year, but the only thing that's been saving his job has just been the fact that he can.
The Pac-12 is so bad. That's what saved his job. He somehow sneaks his way into a good year every year, or once every other year, because the Pac-12 is so bad.
I think he's a sitting duck because USC is
I
waiting.
agree. I don't think they want him, but I feel like they're in the situation where they don't know where else to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't just want to fire him to fire him. They're trying to I don't agree with it, but they're going to the point where they're looking for the perfect candidate, and then they're going to fire him after what they find.
Exactly. I think they were definitely trying to get Urban Meyer last year. And if Meyer said yes, he's gone. He would have been gone in an instant. It's the same. Let's say if James Franklin comes open or someone of that caliber comes open not comes open, but wants to go there, then I think they're going to fire him. Now, if he goes 8-4 again, I don't think they're going to fire him. You know, he's going to have to do really bad for them to fire him and then not have a replacement ready. But I think he might be gone. Brom's gone. Frost is very close to being gone. Leach, no, he's not number 5. Way too early to have him number 5. Fuente's on the hot seat for sure. He's been struggling the past couple of years. Babers, how has Dino Babers not been fired yet? He's one of the worst coaches in college football. He is so bad. I have no idea how he hasn't been fired yet. He better be gone. Holgerston sucked at Houston. He better be gone too. The guy at UConn, God, he looks like a stuck-up prick. He should be gone. You know, some other guys. Jeff Collins, Georgia Tech, he shouldn't be gone. He's building a good program there. They're going to give him 4 or 5 years just because he has to change entire systems. Other guys, Chip Kelly maybe, he might be on the hot seat. I can't believe they have Jonathan Smith on here. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. Jonathan Smith's one of the best coaches in college football.
And Mel Tucker.
Yeah, Mel Tucker's probably going to be gone.
Well, Mel Tucker could go 1-11 and he wouldn't be gone. Steve Adazio on the hot seat. You hate to see it.
Yeah, tough break.
Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell's not on the hot seat yet. If he has a bad year this year, then maybe. But yeah, I mean, those are the guys to watch out for. In the Big Ten, Nebraska could come open. I think Purdue's going to come open. Yeah, Purdue's going to come open. And besides that, Michigan perhaps could come open if Harbaugh has a disastrous year. And watch out for Penn State if James Franklin decides to take the USC job, which I think is a possibility. Because I think Penn State has a ceiling right now for how good they can be, just based on the fact of their location in the Northeast and the fact they got Ohio State in their conference. It's a little bit of a cap on how good they can be. So maybe James Franklin decides to go out west where it's much easier to win. You got much better recruits. Better, you know, who knows? We'll see. All right, is that it?
Michigan sucks.
Yeah, Michigan sucks. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week.